The rain-slicked streets of Manhattan gleamed like shattered glass under the sodium lamps, and I stood there, portfolio case clutched like a lifeline, watching my reflection fracture in a puddle, a ghost of the man I'd been before the world decided I wasn't enough. "You're too much of a risk now, Dean," my boss had spat that afternoon, his voice laced with the kind of casual cruelty that lingers like smoke. All because a client caught wind of my weekend with a guy from the bar. And just like that, 8 years of climbing ladders in this cutthroat city evaporated, leaving me adrift in the downpour, wondering if I'd ever feel solid again. I ducked into the first coffee shop I saw, a hole in the wall on West 23rd called Brewed Awakening, the kind of place where freelancers nursed lattes and dreamed of breakthroughs. The bell above the door jingled like a mocking laugh, and I shook off the rain, scanning for an empty stool at the counter. That's when I saw him, mid-30s, sharp jawline shadowed with a day's stubble, navy suit tailored like it was woven from ambition itself, typing furiously on a laptop that probably cost more than my rent. Our eyes met as I slid onto the stool 2 seats down, and he didn't look away. Instead, he closed his screen with a deliberate snap, like he'd been waiting for the universe to drop someone interesting into his orbit. "You look like you just lost a fight with the weather," he said, his voice warm baritone cutting through the hiss of the espresso machine, a faint Midwestern lilt softening the edges. "Chicago. Maybe. Or Detroit." I forced a laugh that tasted like ash, muttering something about New York being a bully on bad days. And before I knew it, he'd slid a napkin my way with his name scrawled in bold ink. Carl Whitaker. CO. Whitaker Dynamics. "Show me what you're carrying," he added, nodding at my portfolio. And in that moment, with rain drumming the windows like impatient fingers, I handed over the last piece of myself I had left. The steam from his black coffee curled up like a question mark as he flipped through my designs. Sleek logos for startups that never launched, ad campaigns for brands too fickle to last. I braced for the polite nod, the impressive, but that had become my anthem of rejection. But Carl's eyes lit up, tracing the lines of a poster I'd done for a queer youth center last year, all bold colors and unapologetic hope. "This," he said, tapping the page, "this is what we're missing. Authenticity. Guts." He leaned back, crossing his arms over a chest that filled out his shirt just right, and fixed me with a gaze that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. "I'm Carl. And you are Dean Hargrove," I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. We talked for an hour about the grind of the city, how it chews up dreamers and spits out husks. He shared how he'd bootstrapped Whitaker Dynamics from a garage in Brooklyn to a midtown powerhouse in digital marketing, losing sleep over pitches to Fortune 500 suits who saw numbers, not stories. I confessed the firing, the raw sting of it still fresh, how coming out had turned my professional life into a minefield. Carl didn't flinch. He just nodded, like he'd heard it before, lived it maybe. "The world's full of cowards," he said softly. "But you're not one of them." By the time the barista flipped the closed sign, the rain had eased to a drizzle, and Carl was scribbling his card into my palm. "Interview tomorrow. 9 sharp. Bring that fire." I walked home through the steam rising from grates, the card burning a hole in my pocket, wondering if this was pity or providence. My apartment in Hell's Kitchen was a shoebox of exposed brick and regret, posters peeling from walls, a bed that sagged like my resolve. I collapsed onto it, staring at the ceiling cracks that mapped out my failures. The ex who bailed when I wouldn't hide us anymore, The family back in Ohio who sent birthday cards but skipped pride. Sleep came fitful, dreams tangled with Carl's smile and the what-ifs that had haunted me since the layoff. Morning broke gray and insistent, the alarm blaring like a challenge. I showered, scrubbed away the doubt, chose a charcoal blazer that hugged my frame without screaming for attention. The subway rattled me uptown, past the ghosts of billboards I'd designed, to the glass tower on 6th Avenue that housed Whitaker Dynamics. The lobby was all polished marble and hushed efficiency, receptionists in power heels who eyed me like an intruder. But when the elevator dinged on the 22nd floor, Carl was there, sleeves rolled up, coffee in hand. Right on time. Let's see if you can keep up. His office overlooked the Hudson, a sprawl of monitors and mood boards pinned with concepts that screamed innovation, campaigns for eco-brands, viral hooks for nonprofits. He didn't waste time on small talk. He dove in, tossing scenarios at me like grenades. Rebrand this for a queer-owned winery. Make it sing without pandering. I sketched on his whiteboard, lines flowing freer than they had in months, colors popping in my mind like fireworks. He watched, interjecting with questions that sharpened rather than dulled. Why that font? Does it evoke resilience or rebellion? By noon, we'd co-created a mock-up that had his team lead, a wiry woman named Lena, clapping from the doorway. Hire him yesterday, she said, and Carl just grinned, that lopsided thing that crinkled his eyes. Lunch was Thai takeout at his desk. Pad see ew tangled on styrofoam, stories spilling out between bites. Carl grew up in a steel town outside Pittsburgh, son of a mill worker who died too young, mother who waitress doubles to fund his art school dreams. I pivoted to business when the loans piled up, he admitted, chopsticks pausing. But design's in my blood. Lost it somewhere along the way. I told him about my own roots, small-town Ohio, where being gay meant whispers and side eyes, where I'd fled to New York at 19 with a sketchpad and stars in my eyes. Thought the city would fix me, I said, but it just broke me different. He reached across, his hand brushing mine, just a graze, but electric, lingering in the air like ozone after lightning. The offer came that afternoon, casual as a weather report, creative director position, salary that made my head spin, benefits including therapy sessions because, as he put it, talent like yours deserves backup. I stared at the contract, pen hovering, heart hammering. Why me? You don't even know if I fit. Carl leaned on his desk, forearms corded with quiet strength. Because I see me in you, Dean. The kid who believed he could build something real. And because this city's too damn lonely to go it alone. I signed, the ink drying like a seal on a new chapter, and as we shook on it, his grip firm and warm, I felt the first crack in the armor I'd built around my chest. Weeks blurred into a rhythm I hadn't known I craved. Mornings started with Carl's texts, quick hits of encouragement, like, that skyline render? Genius. Coffee run. And evenings ended with brainstorm sessions that stretched into the hum of the city lights. The team embraced me, Lena with her noble shit feedback, Javier the coder who blasted reggaeton during deadlines, Mia the intern with sketches that rivaled mine. Whitaker Dynamics buzzed with a familial pulse, Carl at its heart, leading not with barked orders but with that steady gaze, drawing the best from us like a conductor. But it was the stolen moments with him that stitched me back together. Late nights in the office, city sprawled below like a glittering promise. We'd talk for real. About the exes who'd carved us hollow, his A Wall Street shark named Trevor who'd promised forever then ghosted when the spotlight swung too bright on Carl's queerness. He said I was too public, Carl confessed one night. Bourbon neat in crystal tumblers we'd smuggled from his private stash. Like loving me was a liability. I shared my own scars. Ryan, the barista who'd whispered sweet nothings until my coming out went viral at work, then packed a bag and vanished, leaving a note that read, "I can't be your villain." We laughed at the absurdity, but it was the kind of laugh that aches, laced with the what-ifs of roads not taken. Attraction simmered beneath it all, unspoken but insistent, a brush of knees under conference tables, eyes holding a beat too long across crowded rooms. Carl was all contrasts, commanding in boardrooms, vulnerable in quiet confessions, his laugh a rumble that vibrated through me. I'd catch myself sketching him in margins, jawline sharp as a skyline, hands that gestured like they were painting the air. And he'd notice, teasing, "Flattery gets you extra PTO," but his cheeks would flush, that boyish hint peeking through the CEO facade. One Friday, after sealing a deal with a major apparel client, my campaign, bold and unapologetic, front and center, the team spilled into a rooftop bar in Chelsea. Neon pulsed against the night, laughter mingling with the thump of bass. Carl pulled me aside, two Manhattans in hand, the city a mosaic of lights at our feet. "You did this," he said, clinking glasses. "Brought the soul back to us." Heat bloomed in my chest, not from the whiskey, and when he stepped closer, the space between us humming, I thought this could be it. The rebuild I'd been chasing not in designs, but in the mirror of his eyes. But life, that fickle bastard, had other plans. Monday morning, an email from HR, mandatory sensitivity training, prompted by recent client feedback. Whispers rippled through the floor. Turns out, our big win came with a caveat from the client's conservative board, eyeing Carl's personal life with veiled threats. He brushed it off in the meeting, all charm and deflection, but I saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his smile didn't quite reach. "Just politics," he murmured to me later. Door closed. "We've weathered worse," yet doubt crept in, a shadow at the edges of our easy rapport. Was I the risk now, the loose thread that could unravel it all? As autumn leaves skittered across Central Park, our late nights deepened. Carl opened up about the isolation of the top, friends who faded when success hit, lovers who saw dollar signs over heartbeats. "You're different," he said one evening, rain lashing the windows again, our takeout forgotten. "You see the mess, not the title." I wanted to bridge the gap, to tell him the mess saw him too, the man who mentored Mia through her portfolio jitters, who donated quietly to shelters in Harlem. Instead, I leaned in, our foreheads nearly touching, breath mingling. "Then let me help clean it up," I whispered. His hand found my neck, thumb tracing my pulse, and for a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that touch, tender, electric, promise unspoken. We didn't kiss, not yet. It hung there, fragile as frost on glass. But in the days that followed, the air between us thickened with possibility. Stolen lunches in Bryant Park, where he'd feed me bites of his sandwich, fingers lingering on my lips. Walks home through the village, shoulders brushing as we dodged tourists, sharing playlists that wove our tastes, his classic rock bleeding into my indie folk. Confidence bloomed in me like a long dormant seed. Designs sharper, pitches bolder, the mirror reflecting a man who stood taller. Carl noticed, his pride a quiet glow. "Look at you," he'd say, and I'd believe it. Then came the betrayal, swift as a knife in the ribs. It started with a call from Ryan, my ex. Of all people, tipsy voicemail at 2 a.m., slurring about making it right. I deleted it, but not before Carl overheard the tail end during a sleepover work session. Platonic. We'd insisted, crashing on his couch after a deadline. "Old flame?" he asked, voice light but eyes searching. I downplayed it, but seeds of insecurity sprouted. The next week, Trevor resurfaced, Carl's ghost, emailing from London. "Congratulations on the firm. Let's catch up." Carl shared it with me, laughing it off. But I saw the flicker, the old wounds reopening. The climax brewed in a boardroom storm. Our next big pitch, a campaign for a national bank, conservative as they come. My concept, diverse faces, stories of second chances, landed like a bomb. Cheers from the team, but the client's rep, a silver-haired exec named Hargrove, no relation, thank God, pulled Carl aside post-meeting. I caught fragments, image concerns, personal associations. My name, whispered like a curse. Back at the office, Carl paced, tie loosened, face thunderous. "They're leveraging it. Saying you're higher brings unnecessary scrutiny." My stomach plummeted. "Because of me? Fire me. I'll go." He whirled, eyes fierce. "Like hell. This is our fight now." But the fight fractured us. That night, over whiskey in his loft, exposed beams and city views that once felt like sanctuary, he confessed Trevor's pullback. The ex had been feeding intel to the board, anonymous tips about Carl's lifestyle clashing with client values. Betrayal, double-edged. "He wants me broken," Carl said, glass shattering against the wall, shards glinting like tears. I pulled him close, arms around his shaking frame, murmuring nonsense about worth and warriors. We clung there, hearts pounding in sync. The line we towed finally crossed in a kiss that tasted of salt and surrender. Slow, searching, a dam breaking after too long holding back. The morning after tasted like regret wrapped in revelation. Sunlight slanted through Carl's loft blinds, gilding the rumpled sheets where we tangled not in passion's rush but in the quiet unraveling of guards long held. No fevered nights, just hands mapping scars, whispers trading truths until dawn chased us into uneasy sleep. I woke to the scent of coffee brewing, Carl at the kitchen island in boxers and a faded Steelers tee, staring out at the East River like it held answers. "Morning," I said, voice rough, patting over in borrowed sweats that drowned my frame. He turned, smile tentative, and pulled me into a hug that lingered, chins on shoulders, the world outside forgotten. We didn't label it, not yet too raw, too soon after the boardroom quake. But over breakfast, burnt toast and jam from a jar sticky with memory, we plotted. "We go bigger," Carl declared, eyes alight with that fire I'd first glimpsed in the coffee shop. "Double down on the campaign. Make it undeniable." I nodded, sketching ideas on a napkin, testimonials from real people, queer voices amplified without apology. It was rebellion wrapped in strategy, and for the first time, I felt like part of a we, not the lone wolf I'd been since Ryan, since Ohio's judgmental stares. Work that week was a whirlwind of defiance. The team caught the vibe. Javier hacking together interactive demos, Lena cold-calling allies in the industry. Carl and I co-led, our synergy electric, his business acumen sharpening my creative edges. my empathy grounding his ambitions. Late afternoons bled into evenings at his place. Takeout cartons piling up as we refined. Touches grew bolder. A hand on the small of my back during walks to the bodega. Fingers interlacing under conference tables. One night, as snow dusted the fire escape, he traced my collarbone with a fingertip, murmuring, "You make this feel possible again." I kissed him then, soft and sure, the kind that says home without words. But shadows lengthened. Trevor escalated, his emails turning snide, CCNG board whispers about distractions at the firm. Carl's responses were clipped, professional frost, but I saw the toll, dark circles under his eyes, laughs forced in meetings. My own doubts gnawed. Was I the distraction? The pretty face dragging him down? Ryan's calls persisted, voicemails pleading one drink, for old times, until I blocked him, the finality a small victory. Yet it stirred old fears. The boy from Ohio who'd learned love was conditional, doled out in scraps. The pitch loomed. A Thursday in December, the conference room at the bank's Midtown headquarters, a sterile cage of walnut panels and power ties. We arrived early, Carl in bespoke gray, me in a vest that hugged like armor, portfolio under arm. The execs filed in, Hargrove at the head, his gaze sliding over me like oil. Carl launched, voice steady thunder, unveiling the campaign. Billboards of everyday heroes, immigrant entrepreneurs, single dads, queer couples building legacies, tied to the bank's Second Start initiative. My visuals popped on the screen, stories woven in vibrant threads, metrics projected to skyrocket engagement. Questions came fast, probing. Bold, one suit allowed, but risky. Optics. Carl leaned forward, unflinching. Risk builds brands. Hiding, that fades. Hargrove's eyes narrowed on me. And your creative lead, impressive resume, but recent. Transitions. Clients notice. The room tensed, air thick as fog. I felt Carl's hand brush my knee under the table. Anchor, not anchor. Dean's work speaks, Carl said, tone steel. As does his integrity. We're not in the business of apologies. We left with a handshake, provisional yes, revisions pending, but the victory felt hollow. In the elevator, Carl sagged against the wall, exhaling like a man surfacing. That was you, I said, cupping his face. Holding the line, he kissed my palm, weary but warm. Us, back at the office, celebration muted, beers from the fridge, toasts to resilience. But as the team dispersed, Carl pulled me into his office, door locked, and we stood forehead to forehead, breathing each other in. I love this, he whispered. Us against the storm. My heart stuttered, love, unbidden but true. I echoed it back, the word foreign yet fitting, like a key turning in a long-jammed lock. Winter deepened, New York wrapping in holiday lights that mocked our inner chill. The bank's revisions came, tone down the personal stories, amplify the corporate gloss. Carl fought it. Phone calls laced with expletives I pretended not to hear. Trevor struck again. An anonymous leak to a trade blog. Whitaker Dynamics. Innovation or indiscretion? Painted Carl as reckless. Me as the new hire wildcard, dredging my firing for drama. The piece went viral in industry circles, shares spiking like accusations. Panic rippled through the firm. Lena cornered me in the break room. You okay? This shit's aimed at you. I nodded, throat tight, but inside, the old fracture lines spiderwebbed. That night, Carl and I walked the High Line, snowflakes catching in his hair like confetti from a cruel party. "We'll sue if we have to," he growled, arm around my waist. But I pulled away, words tumbling. What if it's true? Me being the liability? He stopped, turning me to face him, city lights haloing his frustration. "Dean, you're the best damn thing that's happened to this place. To me. Don't let ghosts rewrite that. We made love that night for the first time. Not in haste but in hunger for connection. Slow explorations under down blankets. Bodies learning rhythms like a shared language. No fireworks. Just the profound ache of vulnerability met with grace. His whispers in my ear. My fingers in his hair. The quiet afterglow where we talked until stars wheeled overhead. Stay, he said as I dressed for my shift at the temp agency, still pulling weekends. Pride be damned. We build this together. I did. Most nights. My apartment gathering dust. But betrayal's blade twists deeper with time. Valentine's approached. The city awash in reds and pinks that felt like taunts. Carl planned a surprise. Dinner at his favorite speakeasy in the Bowery. Candlelit nook with jazz humming low. I arrived early, nerves electric, only to find him delayed by a board call. Waiting at the bar, nursing a gin fizz. My phone buzzed. Ryan, unblocked by accident in a late-night haze. Texting a photo. Carl, arm around Trevor at some gala last month. Smiles wide, intimate. Caption, thought you should know. He's playing you. The world tilted. Gala? Carl had said it was a solo networking bore. I scrolled. Heart pounding. More pics from mutuals. Tagged Whitaker wins. Trevor front and center. Whispers in captions about reunited power couple. Betrayal. Not from ghosts, but flesh and bone. When Carl arrived, flushed and apologetic, traffic from hell, I slid the phone across the table, voice flat. Explain. His face drained, eyes darting. Dean, it's not. But I was up, coat snatched, storming into the February bite. Save it for the blog. I shot back, the door slamming like finality. Days blurred in a haze of hurt. I threw myself into work. Designs frantic. Team tiptoeing around the frost in my wake. Carl's texts piled up. Talk to me. It was nothing. Trevor's manipulating. But I ghosted. The irony bitter. Ryan's victory lap call I ignored. But his words echoed. Playing you. The bank's contract evaporated. Revisions rejected as too divisive. Hargrove's polite email a coffin nail. Carl called an all hands. Layoffs looming. Morale in the gutter. I sat in the back, arms crossed, his gaze pleading across the room. We're pivoting, he said, voice cracking just once. To what matters? That night, alone in my shoebox, I unpacked the portfolio from that rainy day, the coffee shop napkin with his first scribble, now creased and sacred. Tears came hot, not for the job or the love, but the confidence I'd glimpsed, now shattered anew. A knock rattled the door. Carl, snow-dusted, eyes red-rimmed. Let me in, please. Against better judgment. I did. He didn't defend, just sat on my threadbare couch, hands clasped like prayer. Trevor crashed the gala. Old habits, flattery, familiarity. But it was surface. Dean. Empty. Paced. Words lashing. And me? The rebound? The risk you warned against. He stood, closing the distance, voice breaking. No. You're the real. The one who saw through the suit to the scared kid from Pittsburgh. We argued until voices hoarsened. Me hurling insecurities, him parrying with truths I'd forgotten. The sketches I'd left on his desk, Valentine's in pixels, the way he'd advocated for my promotion, fought the board for us. Exhaustion won. We collapsed side by side, not touching, the space between a chasm bridged by silence. I betrayed your trust, he admitted finally, by not telling you about the gala. Fear, I guess losing this. I turned, meeting his gaze, the rawness mirroring mine. Then earn it back. Dawn crept in, gray light forgiving, and in that fragile truce, we began the real rebuild, not of campaigns, but of us. Spring teased at the edges of March, crocuses pushing through concrete like stubborn hope. The firm stabilized with a pivot to boutique clients, queer brands, social justice orgs who valued our edge. Carl and I navigated the minefield, therapy sessions he insisted we share, separate at first, then joint, unpacking the baggage we dragged from exes and expectations. Dates were tentative picnics in Prospect Park, hands held openly, his thumb circling my knuckles like a vow. Healing isn't linear. It's a stutter-step waltz, two forward, one stumbling back. By April, Carl and I had carved out a rhythm. Mornings tangled in his loft, coffee brewed strong, commutes shared on the 6 train where he'd read the Times aloud, mocking headlines till I snorted into his shoulder. Work hummed with cautious optimism. My designs for a trans-led fashion line went viral, shares flooding Insta with reel threads. The team toasted at Friday happy hours, Javier dubbing us the unbreakable duo, winks all around. Carl's laugh rang true again, that deep timbre wrapping me like a scarf against the spring chill. But scars itch. Trevor's shadow lingered in cease and desist letters, his firm lawyering up to bury the leak. Ryan, too, circled, linked in messages checking in, until I reported him, the block permanent. Carl noticed my flinches, the way I'd withdraw after a tough critique, old doubts whispering I was one misstep from the door. You're here because you belong, he'd say, pulling me onto the fire escape for stargazing over smog, his arm a steady weight. Those nights, we'd dream aloud. A cabin in the Catskills for weekends away, collaborations with artists from his Pittsburgh roots. A life, he'd murmur, kissing my temple. Not just survival. The real test came mid-May. An industry gala at the Met, glittering chandeliers, power players in tuxes that cost my monthly rent. Carl asked me as his +1. No qualifiers. Proudly, I said, heart swelling. We dressed sharp, him in midnight blue, me in emerald that brought out my eyes, his compliment lingering like cologne. The red carpet flashed, reporters cooing Carl Whitaker and partner. The word partner a balm on wounds I thought scabbed. Inside, amid marble halls and whispered deals, we navigated like pros, his hand at my elbow, my quips easing tense clusters. Then Trevor materialized, champagne flute in hand, smile oily as ever. Tall, blonde, the kind of wasp polish that screams old money. Carl, darling, he drawled, I sliding to me like an afterthought. Brought the muse. Carl's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed even, Dean. My partner. Trevor's laugh tinkled, forced. Charming. Heard about the bank fiasco, tough break. He leaned in, Voice low, "You always did pick strays." I froze, the barb hooking deep, but Carl stepped forward, arm around my waist. "And you pick fights you can't win. Enjoy the caviar." We walked away, my pulse thundering, but Carl's grip said enough, shield, not sword. Back at the loft, adrenaline crashed. I paced the living room, gala finery shedding like skin. He's right, isn't he? The stray, the one who tanks deals. Carl caught my hands, grounding. No. He's poison, Dean. Jealous of what we have. We talked it out, raw and relentless, my fear of being the phase. His guilt over not shielding me sooner. It ended in tears. Mine first, then his collapsing into each other on the rug. The cities hum a lullaby. "I choose you," he vowed, fingers threading mine. Every damn day, summer scorched in, humidity turning sidewalks to saunas. The firm thrived on our pivot, new clients flocking, a pride sponsorship that had mayor's office buzzing. Carl surprised me with a weekend in Fire Island, pines whispering secrets, beach bonfires where we danced barefoot, sand between toes. No exes, no boards, just us, building sandcastles of dreams, his head on my chest under stars, heartbeat sinking like a promise. "This is confidence," he said, tracing my smile. "Yours, rubbing off on me, yet conflict brewed anew, insidious." Board pressures mounted, investors grumbling over niche focus, profits dipping from the bank's loss. Whispers of a buyout, Carl's vision diluted. He confided over rooftop BBQs, smoke curling from grills. "They want safe. I want real." I pushed back in strategy sessions, visuals amplifying voices long silenced. But doubt crept. Was our love the spark or the fuse? One evening, post-meeting, Lena pulled me aside. "He's burning out." For all of us. Her words landed heavy, a reminder that love's weight includes the world he carried. The climax ignited in July's heat wave, a board retreat in the Hamptons, manicured lawns, ocean breezes masking the storm. Carl invited me as family, but I declined, sensing the undercurrent. Instead, I prepped the presentation from the city, slides pulsing with data, our queer campaigns outperforming norms by 40%, loyalty metrics soaring. "This saves us," I texted him, heart in throat. His reply, "You save me." But midway through, a call shattered the illusion. Carl, voice hollow over crackling line. "They voted. Buyout terms. My role advisory." Silence stretched. Then, and they suggested we part ways. Publicly. For optics. Betrayal. Corporate edition, Hargrove's hand. Trevor's whispers woven in. "I'm coming," I said, hailing a cab to Penn Station, train rattling like rage. The Hamptons house loomed, all white-clabbered and false welcome. I burst into the dining room mid-dinner, board members' frozen forks halfway to mouths. "Dean," Carl started, rising, but I cut him off. Projector cued. "This isn't advisory. This is us." Slides flew. Numbers, stories, testimonials from clients we'd empowered. A lesbian couple's wedding funded by our viral spot. A trans kid scholarship sparked by Pride ads. You buy out vision. You buy out heart. Lose that. Lose everything. Murmurs rippled. Hargrove's face purpling. Carl stood beside me, hand finding mine. United front. "He's right," Carl said. voice steel reborn. Take it or leave it. The room fractured, some nodding, others storming out. By night's end, terms rewritten, autonomy intact, my role formalized as co-creative head. We drove back at dawn, windows down, salt air whipping, his hand on my thigh. You stormed in like a goddamn hero, he laughed, exhausted joy. I leaned over, kissing him at a stoplight, world blurring. We stormed. Together, fall foliage painted the city in fire, mirroring the warmth we'd kindled. The firm stabilized, buyout averted, our campaigns earning industry nods, Effie's gleaming on shelves. Carl and I deepened roots, his loft our shared space now. My Ohio family sending tentative emails after a pride photo went public. Proud of you, son. Ryan faded to irrelevance. Trevor to legal footnotes. Dates wove ordinary magic. Apple picking in Jersey. Hayrides and cider that stained lips sweet. Thanksgiving at Lena's. Tables groaning with sides. Carl carving turkey like a king. But humanism whispers in the quiet. Growth's price is reflection. One crisp November eve. Post-dinner stroll in Washington Square. Leaves crunching underfoot. Carl stopped under the arch. I almost lost this, us. Chasing the throne. I squeezed his hand. We almost lost each other to fear. Therapy had unearthed that. His drive masking abandonment wounds. My designs hiding pleas for belonging. But we chose rebuild, he said, pulling me close. Foreheads touching as jazz buskers played low. Winter circled back. Holidays a tapestry of firsts. Tree trimming with ornaments from his childhood. My sketches turned baubles. New Year's on his balcony. Champagne toasting to confidence. Reclaimed. The rain that started it all returned one January night. Drumming windows as we lay entwined. Remember that coffee shop? He murmured. Fingers lazy on my skin. Felt like fate. I smiled into his neck. Felt like home. Yet the story's heart beats in the unsaid victories. The intern Mia, now full-time, crediting my mentorship, Javier's wedding, us as best men, vows echoing our own unspoken. Carl's mother visited. Steeltown grit meeting city shine. Her hug fierce. He lights up for you. Mine came too. Halting steps toward bridge building. A call where dad choked. Missed seeing you shine. Kid. Spring 2026 bloomed defiant. Cherry blossoms lining the promenade like pink confetti from the gods. Whitaker Dynamics crested a wave. National contracts for inclusive brands. Our office a hive of creativity where diverse wasn't buzzword but bedrock. Carl and I co-steered. Our partnership seamless. His strategies my canvas. My visions his blueprint. Mornings started with shared showers. Steam fogging mirrors as we laughed over burnt bagels. Evenings ended with wine on the couch. Feet tangled. Recapping the day's wins like lovers logging a joint diary. Confidence. That elusive bird. Perch steady now. I mentored a queer design collective in Brooklyn. Saturdays spent in lofts thick with paint and possibility. Echoing the boy I'd been. Scared but sketching anyway. Carl joined once. Awkward with charcoals but earnest. His clumsy lines earning cheers. See, I teased later. Over falafel in the hood. CEO's got soul. He grinned. Sauce on his chin. Kissing it away. Only when you draw it out. But life's undercurrents pull. Testing moorings. Trevor's final jab landed in June. A countersuit. Baseless claims of defamation from the blog fallout. Dredged to drag us courtward. Carl's lawyer scoffed. frivolous. But the toll mounted. Depositions in stuffy offices. Nights pouring files till eyes burned. I held the fort at work, rallying the team through a crunch for a nonprofit gala. But cracks showed, snappish emails, sleep evading like a thief. "He's gunning for weakness," Carl muttered one midnight, pacing the loft. I drew him to bed, hands framing his face. Then we armor up. Together, the courtroom dance dragged into summer swelter, Manhattan's heat mirroring the friction. Trevor testified slick, painting Carl as volatile, me as interloper. I took the stand, voice steady under fluorescence. Love isn't liability. It's leverage for better stories, stronger brands. The judge agreed. Dismissal swift. Sanctions on Trevor stinging. We celebrated quietly. Dinner at our coffee shop origin. Brewed awakening now a touchstone. Mugs clinking to justice served cold. Fall brought harvest of another kind. Carl's proposal for expansion. A satellite office in Pittsburgh, bridging his roots to our empire. "Come with," he said over pumpkin pie at a farm stand upstate, hay bales dotting hills like golden thoughts. I hesitated. Ohio's pull faint but insistent. Family mending, slow as sap. "And if I bridge my own?" He nodded. I soft. "We build bridges, not walls." Thanksgiving sealed it. Dual trips. Me to Columbus for awkward feasts where mom's pie thawed dad's silence. Carl to his mom's for pierogies and tales of mill days. Winter whispered warnings anew. December's board meeting unearthed a ghost. Hargrove. Retired but meddling via proxies. Pushing for streamlining. Code for sidelining our inclusive core. Carl confronted it head-on. Presentation laced with my data. Diverse teams outperform by 35%. Our metrics proof. Tensions peaked. Voices rising in the glass-walled conference room. City indifferent below. "This isn't 1950, Carl thundered. "We're future-proof, or we're fossils." Votes teetered, but allies Lena's sway, Javier's tech demos, tipped it. Victory, hard won, with handshakes masking the sweat. The emotional underbelly surfaced post-meet. Carl, uncharacteristically quiet, retreating to the loft early. I found him on the balcony, scotch in hand, skyline blurring through unshed tears. "Almost lost my way again," he confessed. Chasing ghosts of approval, I wrapped around him from behind, chin on shoulder. "You didn't. We didn't." That night, we delved deep therapy's toolkit out, unpacking the betrayal's echo, how Trevor's knife had nicked his core fear of unworthiness. "You make me worthy," he said, turning, kiss salt-tanged. Love, we learned, is verb active, picking, affirming. Spring 2027 cycled in, relentless renewal. The Pittsburgh office launched with fanfare, ribbon cut by Carl's mom, her pride beaming brighter than fluorescence. I split time, trains humming between cities, my designs adorning walls there, murals of steelworkers turned innovators, nods to heritage reclaimed. Back in New York, our life rooted deeper, adopting a mutt named Scout from a shelter, walks in the park where he'd chase frisbees, us chasing normalcy. Conflict crested subtly, in the humanism of limits. My Ohio visit stretched, Dad's health faltering heart scare, hospital fluorescence harsh as truths. "Stay," Carl urged, but I lingered, nursing bedside vigils, reconciling in fragments. Old man's hand in mine. "Sorry I didn't see you sooner." Return brought guilt's weight. Carl distant. Work swallowing him. Missed you, he admitted over video. Pixels can't convey exhaustion. We mended in person. July heatwave trapping us indoors. Board games sweating on the floor. Laughter peeling back layers till bare. The true climax brewed in August. A client crisis. Major eco-brand pulling out. Citing internal distractions. Code for our high-profile relationship splashed in a puff piece. Power gay couple reshapes marketing. Backlash from conservative fringes. Boycotts whispered. Carl spiraled. Canceling dinners. Buried in damage control. I confronted him in the office. Door slammed. This is the betrayal we fight. Not hide from. Tears streaked his face. Boardroom armor cracking. I'm scared of losing it all, you. The firm. I pulled him close. Whispers fierce. Then fight for us. Not against. We pivoted publicly. Op-ed in the Times. Carl's byline. Love as leadership. Why inclusion wins. It ignited discourse. Allies rallying. The client sheepishly returning. Backlash faded. Replaced by features in out. Panels at South by Southwest where we tag-teamed. His gravitas my passion. Fall's leaves turned triumphant. Raking piles in the park with Scout bounding through. Humanism's thread wove through. Volunteering at the youth center where it started. My old poster now framed. Kids sketch dreams. Carl guest speaking on Failing Forward. One boy, wide-eyed, asked, "How'd you know it gets better?" Carl glanced at me. Smile soft. Met someone who showed me. Winter 2027 blanketed in peace. Holidays blended traditions. Mom's cookies shipped east. Pierogies steaming in the loft. New Year's. We toasted on the High Line. Snow veiling the city like grace. To rebuilds, Carl said. Ring slipping on my finger. Simple platinum. Engraved from ashes. Not proposal, but promise, forever in the choosing. Yet the story's soul lies in the ordinary sacred. Lazy Sundays with the paper. His head in my lap. Arguments over takeout spice levels. Makeup kisses sweet. Confidence. Rebuilt. Isn't monolith, it's mosaic. Pieces of us. Fitted with care. 2028 dawned electric. The city pulsing with post-holiday vigor. Whitaker dynamics hit stride. Pittsburgh thriving. New York the nerve center. Our campaigns etching cultural grooves. A mental health series for vets that trended nationwide. Tagline silent no more my brainchild. Carl's push. Life with him felt like a well-tuned engine. Scout's wagging tail greeting us home. Loft shelves groaning with design tomes and his dog-eared Kerouac. Mornings. He'd hum Sinatra in the shower. Off-key charm pulling giggles from me. Nights. We'd debrief over Pinot. Dreams spilling like wine. Roots deepened cross-country. Ohio visits normalized. Dad's recovery slow. But barbecues on the deck now included stories of my fella. Mom's pie a peace offering. Carl tagged along once. Charming with questions about family lore. Earning nods from stoic kin. He's a keeper. Dad grunted post-departure. The closest to blessing I'd get. Pittsburgh pulled two Carl's mom. Rita. Folding me into Steeltown Sundays. Potlucks where pierogies met my experimental salads. Laughter bridging accents. But drama simmers in success's shadow. Spring brought a poach attempt, rival agency headhunting Carl. Fat contract laced with traditional values. He declined over dinner at Gramercy Tavern. Fork pausing mid-bite. Tempting, but eyes met mine across candlelight. Not without you, I squeezed his foot under table, relief sharp. Yet it stirred undercurrents. My own offers trickling, freelance gigs tempting independence. What if I solo? I mused one eve, sketching freelance logos. Carl's brow furrowed. Support you. Always. But the seed planted balance, not fusion. Summer's heat forged the next forge. A documentary crew shadowed us for a PBS special on queer innovators. Mics capturing boardroom banter, home life candor. Intimacy exposed. Carl's habit of leaving dishes, my clutter of pencils. Deeper, our scars shared on camera, his Milltown isolation, my coming out exile. Airing in fall, dehumanized, but trolls swarmed. Online vitriol branding us agenda pushers. Carl shrugged publicly, but privately, he'd pace. Phone doom scrolling. Ignore, I'd say, drawing him to movie nights, popcorn forts on the couch. One barrage hit hard, a deepfake clip, doctored to show us partying, fueling boycott calls. Betrayal's echo, leaked from Trevor's camp, spite's long tail. Carl confronted it in a live stream, voice raw, hate hides fear. We choose love, views soared, support flooding, letters from kids, shares from allies. The firm weathered, clients doubling down. I held him through the aftershocks, therapy sessions doubling, unpacking how exposure amplified old shames. You're my anchor, he whispered post-stream, curled on the balcony, city lights therapy of their own. Fall's harvest ripened bittersweet. Pittsburgh expansion hit snag. Local zoning bigotry stalling permits. Whispers of not that kind of town. Carl flew out, rallying council with my visuals, projections of jobs. Community uplift. I joined for the hearing, nerves jangling in wood-paneled chambers. His testimony soared. Passion for roots. Vision for all. Vote swung. Groundbreaking in October. Dirt turned under gray skies. Rita's tears mixing with rain. You did this, Carl said later. Over beers at a dive. Locals toasting the city boys. Back east. Personal tides turned. Ryan resurfaced. Rehab stint. Amends email contrite. Hurt you worst by running. Happy for you, I shared with Carl, who nodded. Closure's gift. Forgiving, not forgetting. Lighten my step. Dad's call followed. Saw the doc. Proud. Son. Tears choked me. Handing phone to Carl, who chatted fishing spots like old pals. Winter 2028 blanketed in milestones. Our 5th anniversary. Coffee shop revisited. Then loft feast I'd prepped. Seared scallops. His favorite. Candlelit chaos. Gifts exchanged, me. A leather-bound journal for his unwritten memoir. Him. Tickets to Paris. Rebuild abroad. The trip. January thaw. Was revelation. Sane strolls hand in hand. Louvre whispers. Croissants crumbling under cafe awnings. No jet-set gloss. Just us. Kissing in Montmartre rain. Sketching him by the Eiffel glow. This is us, he said. Tower sparkling. Unbreakable. Return sparked the climax's prelude. Agency buzzed with a mega pitch. Global rebrand for a tech giant. Stakes stratospheric. Carl led. Me co-designing. Weeks blurring in caffeine-fueled marathons. Tension mounted. Rivals circling. Internal doubts from new hires wary of our celebrity. One night, post mock-up, Carl snapped at a concept tweak. Words sharp. Focus. Dean, not everything's a statement. Silence deafened. hurt blooming. Is that me? Or us dragging you? Door slammed. Me to the guest room, first rift since the gala. Morning apologies over espresso. Raw, his stress masking fear of failure. My sensitivity, the old stray wound reopening. We're human, I said, hugging across island. Flawed. Fabulous. Therapy reframed it. Boundaries as love's frame, not cage. The pitch day dawned crisp March. Boardroom at the client's Silicon Alley HQ, a pressure cooker. Carl unveiled. Voice commanding. My visuals cascading. Inclusive interfaces. Narratives of connection. Questions barraged. But we tag-teamed, his data, my stories. Synergy undeniable. Win sealed with handshakes. Champagne popped in afterglow. We, Carl toasted. Ice shining. Always. Spring unfurled triumphant. Cherry blossoms encore. The deal funded expansions. Scholarships for design students. Our collective amplified. Personal blooms. Dad visiting New York. Met tour where Carl geeked on armor. Mom's quilts adorning our bed. Rita's birthday bash in Pittsburgh. Family fused, pierogies and Ohio pie. Toasts to the boys who made it. Yet humanism tempers triumph. A client lost to budget cuts. Layoffs minimal but gutting. Carl shouldered it. Me supporting through severance coffees. Resume tweaks. Leadership's lost too, he sighed. We volunteered more youth center expansions. Mentoring circles where kids saw us. Real and reaching. Summer 2029 simmered with serenity. Fire Island return. Cottage rented for a month, waves crashing. Bonfires nightly. Scout digging endless holes. Love deepened domestic. Carl learning my recipes. Me tolerating his classic rock marathons. Conflicts, petty, thermostat wars. Laughingly resolved. Fall's leaves whispered legacy. Carl's memoir outline shared. My illustrations penciled in. Ohio-Pittsburgh hybrid holidays. Families blending like stews. Winter solstice. We hosted team and kin. Loft aglow. Stories swapping till dawn. The story arcs toward quiet profundity. Confidence not conquered, but companioned. In Carl's gaze, I see the man rebuilt, not flawless, but full. 2030 crested like a wave held long, cresting gentle. The firm, now a beacon, mentored startups in inclusive branding. Our model studied in B-schools. Carl keynote at Davos, virtual. Post-pandemic echo on empathy economies. Me beside on split screen. Sketches live illustrating. Back home. Life layered rich. Scout graying at the muzzle. Slower walks but same joy. Loft expanded with a studio nook. My easel catching morning light. Roots flourished crosswinds. Dad's full remission. Fishing trips with Carl where lines tangled and laughs untangled old knots. Mom's art class enrollment. Inspired by my visits. Watercolors blooming like late forgiveness. Rita's retirement party. Us catering pierogies. Her toast slurring happy tears. You gave my boy back his heart. Families fused annual, Thanksgivings rotating. Recipes remixed. Kinships knit. Drama danced light now. In growth's grace. A junior designer crush on me. Awkward flirt nipped kindly. Carl's jealousy a flicker doused with humor. Mine, he growled playfully, pinning me to the fridge. Therapy evolved, group sessions with the team. Vulnerability modeled. Trevor's fade complete. Wedding announcement to some hedge funder. Our polite card a full circle mercy. Summer's idol. European hopscotch, Paris encore, then Berlin's queer scene, hands linked in clubs pulsing with bass and belonging. World's ours, Carl murmured, dancing sweat slick. Fall's focus, memoir launch, from mill to mirror, my foreword inked with love. Signings packed, fans sharing stories mirroring ours, book signed, billed boldly. Winter 2030 whispered endings beginnings. Carl's doc visit routine, but biopsy flagged. Early, he said, hand in mine, waiting room stark. Treatable, world tilted, but we steadied. Specialists conferenced, plans plotted like pitches. I designed his warrior journal, pages for fears and triumphs. Treatments spanned spring, chemo's drag, but his humor held. Bald looks good on me? Laughter through nausea. My vigils with soups and stories. Climax crested not in storm, but surrender's strength. A bad scan, options narrowing. Carl's eyes met mine in the hospital hush. If not, I silenced with kiss. Fierce. Then we rage beautiful. Allies rallied, team covering. Families flying in. Rita's prayers whispered bedside. He fought. We all did, trials trialed. Hope's thread gossamer but gripped. Miracle's margin. Remission declared June. Scans clear as dawn. Celebration subdued, loft gathering. Toasts tear-streaked. To us, Carl said. Frilier but fierce. Arm around me. Recovery rambled. Walks reclaiming strength. My sketches chronicling portraits of grit. Love's lines etched deep. Humanism's close. Not flawless arc, but lived. We founded a foundation, cancer support for LGBTQ+ underserved. Designs funding care. Youth Center named a wing Hargrove Whitaker. Kids murals walls of wonder. A decade post-rain. Coffee shop revisit. Mugs steaming. Hands clasped across counter. You offered more than job, I said. Carl smiled. Lines crow's feet of joy. You rebuilt me too. City outside. Eternal churn. But us solid. Scarred. Shining. In quiet eaves. Balcony perches. Scout at feet. We reflect. Betrayals forge. Conflicts fire. Romances bloom. Confidence. Shared flame. Warming winters ahead. Love. The ultimate rebuild, human. Haphazard. Holy. The end? Not here. Just the page turn. Story ongoing in glances held. Hands woven. Lives laced eternal.